It is I, Trevor William Church of Haunt. Today with me is the excellent Stephen Waddell of Oath. And it's awesome to see you, my friend. It has been a long time since we've actually talked.
Yeah, yeah, probably like a couple of years, maybe even I don't know. Everything went crazy with pandemic, so I was kind of lost. I don't know.
It's
That's
kind of
when we
funny.
were talking the most was during that. So
Do you remember my I'd hit you up and be like, hey man, quick 5 minute chat. And
yeah,
it's like it turned into like 2 hours. It was like
yeah,
every
clear the
time you're like,
schedule,
hold
get a
on.
coffee. Yeah,
Yeah, it was like a
no
whole
5 minutes.
fucking spiel when we were doing that. And it has been a while. It's not because I haven't thought about you or anything. Obviously, I care about you deeply. It's just that, we at that time when we for those that don't know, um Stephen and we did I was really little backstory real quick.
Mm,
I was really impressed. You remember there was that riff? I can't even remember the song right now, for fuck's sake.
confess. It was confess.
Yeah, and I kept messaging you, and I was like, that fucking riff is
Mm,
like etched in my head. Like it just couldn't leave me. I was listening to it on my fucking phone through Instagram or whatever you put it
yeah,
on.
yeah, it was Instagram
Like
actually.
I had it in my stereo in my car and I kept listening to it, and I was like, this dude's onto something over here. He's like something's percolating, and I like the melody. I like the idea. It had more than, just like traditional metal influences. It was rock, it was
Mhm.
punk, it was metal. I was like, this is fucking right up my alley. And I hit you up to see how you did everything, and you're like, well, I don't have a drummer. And I was like, let me play drums on it.
Yep.
And you're like, sure. And
Yeah.
didn't
I
it start off didn't it start off an EP?
I started off as a single. It started off as a single, and then I think you were like, "Well, if you're gonna do two songs, why don't you just do four?" I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can do four songs." And then like another 5 minute phone call later, it was like, "If you can do four songs, you can do eight." And all of a sudden, it was an
Yeah.
album.
Yeah, I thought at the time it was interesting in hindsight, because when I don't remember it being just a single. But then again, I've smoked a lot of weed and I've
Yeah,
written probably like 40 or 50 songs since then
yeah,
and done like 8 tours on top of being dad over here.
yeah.
Um, but I do remember it. You were writing stuff and you're sending it to me to work on as we were
Mm.
going. And every time you sent me a song, it was the songs were good. I was like, every single time you sent me something, I was like, there's a hook, there's something. And then I do remember though, really, when you sent me Computer Warrior, the song.
Yeah. That's when the album name came out because it wasn't called Computer
Oh
Warrior
yeah,
at the time.
I
I
was
forget what it was called.
just so thoroughly impressed with that song. If you don't mind just like telling people what Computer Warrior is about.
Yeah, it was kind of it's about kind of online culture, I guess, and just how um people are happy to say stuff. I think there was a quote. I spoke about this when I did the live gigs actually. There's a quote from Mike Tyson that kind of sums it up really well. He said that people have got really comfortable saying whatever they want without the fear of being punched in the face. Because you can online, you can say what you want to who you want, and there's no consequences, there's no repercussions. But as soon as you take that situation to real life, it becomes very different. So Computer Warrior is kind of it's about that. It's about people just being dickheads online, I guess.
Uh, yeah, for I thought you told me that your son
Yeah,
had
yeah,
like some
yeah.
issues
There
with.
was a thing. Somebody had said when he was just getting into Instagram, it was at the time. And somebody had said something, I can't remember what it was, and it was just like you're gonna have to see him in school the next day, and he could kick your ass. So like, what are you doing? But like, it was interesting that disconnect that people have. Like, if I say this on my phone, it's not reality. There
Yeah.
was like a weird disconnect there. So that yeah, that was part of it. Yeah, that was kind of what that
I
was kind of
thought
part of
I
it
thought
originally.
at the time I was also working with Saber. Remember, I was working
Yeah, yeah,
on their
yeah. There's
record,
another dude.
and I remember they were here at one point, and I was telling Joel, their guitar player, I said, "This is the most relevant song of heavy metal right now. Like
Mm,
this." And I say that because lyrically, it was the most relevant thing that I kind of was like, I was like, man, this is like just hits the heartstring. Like
yeah,
we know what's happening. Like us older guys,
yeah,
we didn't grow up in this era that we are in now that we've had to adapt to, you know.
yeah.
I grew up, there was no social media.
No
I'm only
phone.
42 years old.
Same, yeah. So
So
it's
it's
no
weird
no
to
phone to
look at
tell
it.
anything, really, you know.
You look at it now and you go, well, there's a lot of good parts of it and there's a
Yeah,
lot of bad. And
aye,
the good thing is we could do stuff like this that
yeah,
before we would have to do it by phone. Like it would
mhm,
have some weird recorder on the other end. There'd be all this static and
mhm.
you can't see expressions. Like right now, to me, we're in the same room.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
looking at the phone. You're right. You're like right next to me, and I don't feel like that there is even a distance between us, even
yeah.
though you're in Scotland. Where in Scotland are you exactly?
So uh, East Coast. So the capital of Scotland, Edinburgh, and I'm just south of Edinburgh. So kind of
Okay,
southeast
just
little
so
town.
people know where the fuck you're from, because I
Yeah,
mean, like, you're obviously not Californian, like Jake Nunn, my
no,
last, my last guest, you know, like we're all California. Hey, bro, you know,
it's a bit
whatever.
different.
You got like a whole different. You're on a different coast. So, and again, also our little collaborative record that we did together would never have been
No, no,
without the
well,
internet.
no way couldn't have done that. No way.
So there we could say like there is the connection,
That's a
but
positive.
also like yeah, the social media thing is really it's really bad. And we were just talking about this before we went live, how I'm not even really involving myself in it anymore. I'm like kind of removing my I'm like I'm looking at it from afar. If there's messages like in the inbox,
Yeah,
I'm going to I'm going to do my thing, but as far as like the postings and those things, they've consumed me for the last decade, and we worked so hard. I feel like so many bands
mhm,
worked so hard to build up any sort of following on the internet, and then all of a sudden they're like they really needed to monetize, and then our
yeah,
reach just got
yeah. It became pointless. The payoff, not there.
on.
Yeah, yeah.
And how do you feel about that as an artist?
Yeah, because I think when we first kind of got chatting, I was working a lot on Instagram and Facebook, and I felt I was getting to a point where I was getting a bit of traction with it, and it was working. So I was happy to put in the effort and like daily posting and everything. I was like, right, I need to keep on top of this because I'm getting more follows and people are getting into it. But recently, I just think that's gone. Like when I used to put up a post, you could be getting 70, 80 likes. Now, 15, 16 is like a good post now. The reach, like you say, is just it's not there unless you're paying. And even then, with
Yeah, so
the Facebook
I
adverts and
found
stuff,
out
nothing.
I talked to a couple influencer people, these
Mhm.
social media figures that I've been lucky enough to kind of get to a point where like I could kind of reach out to some people nowadays. Like I
Mm.
have enough clout with Haunt where it's like I found myself like I have like there's fans of people that I can't believe, I mean, like people that make toys and all this shit
Mm.
that I'm into. I'm like, what, whatever, right? And you meet some people. Well, come to find that a lot of people that are on that level, they're spending like 700 to
Mhm.
2 grand a month
Mental.
to like boost it all, you know? And it's kind of mind boggling because us as musicians were like $700, like that's a lot of records because we don't live in the same, we also live in the era of streamed music where we are like second class citizens, whereas like
Yeah,
20 years ago guys like you and I on an independent level would be doing just fine. We wouldn't have to have, you wouldn't have to have a job.
yeah,
You'd be easily could probably with a like a with a project like yours, well, especially Computer Warrior, because we both know, I feel like we were really successful in that one in light of like promoting it, having people. It was a really good. It was a great experience for me. I hope it was
oh yeah,
as
awesome.
well for you. I loved it. It'll always mean a lot to me. But you know, just even something on an independent level like that, if we would have done that in the 90s, late 90s even,
Mm,
man, that shit would have been underground fire, you know, like
yeah,
on an underground level. um a really good documentary to watch is the Fat Records is No Effects
yeah.
Fat Mike's
I think I've watched
label.
that actually. Yeah, it was
Every
really good.
band, he said every band in the 90s, and they had some shitty bands. I mean, I like
Mm,
some of them a lot, but there was some bad, not very good bands. He said that every band was selling 100,000 copies.
yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, like, and like I know some of these bands because they're from California.
Mm,
And bro, I mean, these dudes, they didn't have that big of a following, not much bigger than what we got now out there. It
mm,
was still rugged on the underground. You know, it wasn't, there was some mainstream shit happening in the punk rock world, but there also was still very, you know, those bands that were on indie labels were not doing fucking stadium
yeah,
shit.
no,
It's very similar. The only difference I see nowadays is that there's less young people. That's the only thing that I've noticed is like there's
yeah,
less young people at shows.
yeah. They're driving so many different directions. I think so. Like even like my I've got two teenagers now, and like when me and you were teenagers, it was you were going out with your mates, maybe like skateboarding for you and whatever we were doing here, and like music was a big thing. It meant a lot. I think now it's just background noise now for kids because there's too much choice because of streaming. Because like you can literally listen to anything you want in the world, and I don't think
Yeah,
that's a good thing. Honestly, I don't
it's
think it is.
weird. It definitely. I try to be on both sides of the coin to try to understand and not be, you know, so, you know, like I don't want to be closed minded about certain things. I feel
Yeah,
like in like Sweden, um, and places like that, like where I feel like there's still like these areas, Sweden, Germany, like they're kind of like giving stipends. Hold on, I gotta let my dog in.
oh yeah, man, cool.
She's gonna sit here and scratch at the door. I'm like, oh, it's fucking scratching. But anyways, like there's these places where they still like really believe in
Yeah,
artists and have like all these stipends and there's like all this stuff. But I don't know how it is in Ireland, but here in the USA, we're like, when you tell somebody you're a professional musician, they're like, well, what's your day job, you know, and stuff like that, which is really random. And you're just like, well, actually, but it's kind of interesting that, you know, like since we have worked together, I like look at that and I go, man, back when, if we were just born too late, like
yeah,
we would have, the things that our projects would just have so much more heat to them, I feel. Whereas, you know, now maybe I hear the word saturated a lot, but I feel like
yeah.
everything is saturated.
I think so. Yeah, yeah, it is. There's just
What isn't sat? Is there anything that's not saturated? Even
nah.
skateboarding is saturated. Skateboarding is in the Olympics now
I
and
know.
is like nationally broadcast. So, I
Yeah,
mean, even to that extent, I mean,
it was
when I was growing up, we would get arrested for
yeah, it was
skateboarding.
underground. Yeah,
So, and
underground
like
thing.
the skate shops were, you know, owned by the town dude that fucking loved watching everybody rip. Like he maybe skated in the 70s or 80s, you know,
Mm,
whatever. but I started skating young. I started skating in 1987. I was 6 years old. The board was as big as me, and those things were
Mm.
fucking heavy. So I was just already of a different thing. So when I look at everything, I'm like, everything is saturated. That doesn't make skateboards have gotten more expensive. Music has gotten cheaper. It seems like everything has gotten more expensive except for music.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, like literally everything. Putting petrol in your car is more
Everything.
expensive. Electricity, yeah.
Even
But
the
music too.
subscription services of streaming
Yeah,
have gone up,
yeah.
you know?
No, it's
And
crazy.
I have always known that you're kind of like we are of like minds. Like that's
Yeah,
probably
it's kind of
when
old
I
school.
first started talking to you, one thing that really interested me was like you're doing stuff very similar to how I started with Haunt
Mm. Yeah, well, you were a big
alone.
inspiration to me anyway. Like a lot of, I'll quite often find myself doing stuff, like, whether it's artwork or whatever, and I'll do it and I think that's really good. And then I'll look at it and go, oh, I'm pretty sure Trevor already did this. And you'll find like, it'll be like a color scheme. Did one the other night. I had a bit of artwork and it had like the blue, really blue sky and kind of yellow sort of grass. And I was like, that's a fucking Haunt album cover. I had to bitch it. But
Yeah,
it's, so like I've kind of definitely taken this from you doing stuff by yourself was quite like on the first EP was a big influence to me because it was like, right, you can make heavy metal as a one man thing, and it can be like it doesn't have to be like necro black metal. It can be melodic, like old school
sure.
heavy metal. So that was a big, yeah. I think there's definite parallels. I think you can see between our two
Yeah,
bands.
at the time, I mean, I might have been a little bit before Oath, but I think
You were,
you've been playing music. So how long have you been actually playing guitar?
I think I would have been like 12, 13, I think, when I started, something like that. I can remember getting I don't know if this brand exists in the States, but it's a brand called Encore who make like his guitars, I guess. So that was like my first. It was a
Yeah,
little black, Strat shape single pickup. I think it had like a little headphone amp with it and a VCR video on how to play rock guitar. That was me. That was all I had. And then obviously no YouTube to get tutorials, no
yeah,
internet to get tabs. So you're buying tab books and
and that was
figuring
fucking
it out.
hard, by the way.
Yeah, because a lot of them
I
were
felt
wrong.
like Tab, like early on in my guitar playing, it was like looking at Tab when you get to the solo,
Yeah,
you're like,
you're like,
what the
what?
fuck is this?
I know.
Right? And then you
Yeah,
have to kind of try to figure it out. And it
mhm,
was not as simple as now, where you can just, we even have Guitar Tab Pro where like you press play
yeah.
and
But I
you can
think
loop the
because we did
section.
that, because we figured out stuff and played it wrong, I think that made us play a certain way. Like the generation of self-taught players, guys, just figuring it out. We sound a certain way. We have like a certain kind of vibrato. We have a certain way of certain notes that we will hit and certain licks that will hit. That again, I sound like an old man shouting at the sky here, but like kids that are learning stuff off of YouTube now, they're all learning off the same people, so they all sound the same.
Yeah, they do. True.
They haven't really had the
It's true.
same struggle.
I see there's a lot of this like sweep tap thing going on. And I'm just like, that's cool. And it's really funny that I'm talking shit on that right now because I've been doing a lot of sweep picking on my new records. And
Uh,
it's not because it's not I use it differently than they do,
yeah,
you know? Like I still have a lot of old school sensibility to what
I
I'm
think
gonna
it's time to
do.
mix it in.
I mean, we've always done a little sweet picking,
Mm.
but I'm saying now it's like it really is getting a little bit more. Like I was working on shit today, and I was like, "Up, I'm gonna do a sweep here," and it's way more than I used to do. Like honestly, and I think you know, watching what these guys do, right? And they don't really show much more. They're like, "Here, this is what you do," right? And you do this
Yeah, it's like a sport now. It's become like a
thing,
sport.
right? You're like,
Mhm.
where's the riff?
Yeah,
What are you playing to that? You know? And that's weird in itself. Not saying that I don't like that because I do like technical prog, anything that
yeah,
really makes you have to actually learn how to do something. is always intriguing to me. It's just in my brain, I don't see how it fits to a song. So I don't find it as impressive. And you are a songwriter. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I found out about you fast with Computer Warrior, that you were just like, I was like, all right, we need an EP. Okay, full album. Boom.
Yeah.
Like 2 months later, we were done.
I know. It was quick, man. It was so quick.
2 months, and you
Uh,
sent me some crazy ass shit. I remember like, because you sent me all the stems, and you were doing it how you were
yeah.
doing your records, right?
A mess.
And you sent me all this stuff, and I'm like, dude, what's going on here? Like, why? And what I found out, that what you were doing, that was complete, because you were really descriptive. You labeled the files really well.
Yeah.
You're like vocal one, vocal two, solo, like it was fucking descriptive. Like, no way that I wouldn't ever, looked at it and been like, okay. But the first thing that I remember, and it was like, because I was working on it, I was trying to like mix it, and I was writing to that stuff, because you were sending it to me. That was going to be the product, right? But
Yeah.
you're sending to me, so I just have headphones on, and I have my mix of what I'm doing over here, right? And I'm just like, you sent me like 4 rhythm guitar tracks. And then I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then I think at one point I realized that all you did was double the, like, say, stage left guitar. You put it on the other side too.
Yeah.
Do you remember I told I like, once I figured that out, like the whole project became so much easier, because I was confused, because I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Why am I like, what? Because it made it like, but anyway, that was crazy, because like I also never really had done a record with somebody over the internet like that. I
Yeah.
think you were my first.
Mhm.
I ended up doing a couple more after you with Joe from Ice War.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you were my first. And so I had to get used to like getting other people's files, putting them into my computer, and then trying to make sense of it, and sit there and be the drummer of it, and play it, and then edit it, and do all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So do you still record that way, or do you now do
No,
everything on one side?
no, I
God, I was like, what the fuck is
I,
going on here? I was like, I don't know. And it was like, and if you listen to Computer Warrior, you're probably like, what the fuck is Trevor going on about? It's like, it's straight up heavy metal guitar. But no, when you got like 3 guitars on each side, and then they're like all different, I was confused, because I didn't really think at the time. I was like, oh, it's just that. It's just the right side. He doubled the guitar and put it on the other side. So I actually think I didn't ended up didn't use all of it, because
and you,
I just picked the one that had the better tone.
yeah.
And let's talk about, let's quickly, one dude, this Grovel 78 said something. He said, today we have more bands you can spend your money on. In the past, there were less bands and less good bands.
That's true.
I mean, it's only true to the sense that we didn't know about it. They were there. I
Yeah.
talked to my dad about this. You got to remember, I come from a musical fucking family. I'm like a legacy musician. I'm it's crazy how many people in my family have succeeded in music. So anyway, um, my dad told me in the 60s, 70s, all that, there was a shit ton of bands. You just couldn't do what you did. There wasn't a bunch of studios. Like, a lot of bands recorded to a tape, recorded to tape, and they would print their own. They were doing the same shit we are doing now. It's
Yeah.
not any different. The musical thing, the only thing that's changed is we have computers and we could do it from home, and it's
That's
easier.
that's a good point.
That's it. But they were, I actually just put it in my attic. I should have kept it in here. But I had in here in my studio here in Fresno, I had in here on one of my desks on display, my dad's recorder that he used. He had a multi-track tape recorder. And that's what he used on all the Sammy. Sammy would send them reel to reels, and my dad would have to put the reel to reel on. He plugs in and play there, and they sent it back. They did this back
Really?
and forth shit. back then.
Fuck. So just the same as us, but it just would have taken way longer, I guess.
It's way more expensive
Mm.
too, because you think about what a computer costs you now. It's like nothing. Like buying a multi-track recorder back in the day was going to cost you 2 grand.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
know, one of a professional. You know, not one like you put a cassette tape in and press record and the speaker might no.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking one you could plug. You could plug your bass into it. You could plug your guitar into it. You could do so. You know, they had little preamps built in and all that shit, so you can actually get a pretty decent
That's so cool.
recording. You know, so they did shit like that. So there were a fucking lot of bands, and to make that argument even truer, my homie Daniel Hall from Easy Rider Records.
Mm.
One time it was called Writing Easy Records, and now it's Easy Rider. But when I met him, it was Writing Easy, so sometimes I say that. He has a comp series called Brown Acid, and it's a compilation of all these 70s obscure Southern rock, proto metal kind of bands, right? Like psychedelic, even acid rock, all this stuff. And they're on the 10th trip right now, and they are not slowing down. And I
Wow.
mean, these are full albums. So, I mean, they're all obscure bands you never heard of.
Mm.
So, it's nothing that's like mainstream at all. So, there were a lot. It was just harder to find them
Yeah.
because it wasn't the internet here where you could just type it in and boom, it's
Yeah.
at your. You would have had to find out. You know how I used to find out. This is very interesting. So in the Bay Area of California, there's this thing called the List,
Yeah, I've heard of
and
that.
you would get it at a concert, and it was all the shows that were in the Bay Area or around the Bay Area. And what I used to do back in the day is I would get the list when I was young, a teenager, and I would look at the band. I go, who's playing on Friday? Blah, blah, blah. And I would go try to find their tape or find somebody that had them or
Nice.
try to figure out who they were. And then, because then I could listen to them beforehand and like know some of the words or whatever. And man, I remember seeing the list online. I don't think it's on there anymore. I don't know, or I'm not going to shows, but I remember when I was 19 and I had a computer, personal computer, and I went on it and I was finding shows then. It was like way different because I was now able to search mp3.com and I would find these certain bands, like whoever's a random band. That's
Yeah.
how I used to find out about local bands back in the day, or playing with them. And you know that it's different now for sure. It is vastly changed.
Yeah, but it's like you say. There's good bits and there's bad bits. I see his point that it does seem like there's more bands and less good bands, but yeah, it's just one of them. It's the ability to have.
Yeah, you don't really nobody really knows. I'm just saying it's like
Yeah, it
uh
could be millions.
interesting because like as a as an independent artist, you have to go through a lot of ideas and a lot of um man, it could be depressing at times just knowing like, oh shit, I don't have the time to work on this like I would. And I'm sure you probably experienced that heavily. As you said, you have your job. I know you're a
Time,
dad.
time's the biggest issue, definitely. That's the hardest bit about being an independent musician is finding time and just fighting that urge to like when you come in from work, you want to just you have something to eat and you put your arse on the sofa and you put fucking YouTube videos on, and all of a sudden you're stuck, and it's like, oh, I need to move and go and record something, but it's hard to get it like into the kind of recording zone. So that's the biggest struggle I
Well,
would
I
say.
can only imagine. I mean, you have 2 kids, right? Or you have three?
Three now, yeah,
Three.
three kids.
Yeah. So you have two that are older, and you just had one a few years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Zach's I think around about the same age as Rex. I think he's 4.
He's 4. Okay. I mean, I'm sorry, my brain. It's been a long. I'm just trying to compute even because I know you have your oldest one is getting he's starting to become a young man
Oh,
now.
he's 15. He's just turned 15. So yeah, we're at that.
So So that's a big man.
Yep.
You've not slept in 2 decades almost, you know.
I know.
I mean,
It's
because
true.
like that, like it's interesting because you have to, you know, I only have Rex, so I only have that one experience. But I'll tell you what, like I was telling him earlier, I was like, bro, I am tired of being your milk servant because he's always like milk, milk, and I'm like, fuck, man, I get up like 8 times a day to get him milk, so like it's so hard. I could only imagine the weight that you carry having a dream of a musical dream and musical aspirations while having to support a family and be a dad. Like that's, and not only that, a husband too. I mean, like that is impressive that you even exist.
Yeah. But I think that that's probably the norm for like most musicians. I think now, like we've all got kind of day jobs. We're all juggling things left, right, and centre, and just trying to record when we can. The bonus is I've never been a great sleeper, so I'm always up late. So usually it's when everyone else goes to bed. That's the time where I'm like,
Yeah,
I can go, and now I can relax. Everything's quiet, and I can go and start recording some stuff now. So usually I'm between like 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. is when I do all my stuff. But
that's
then,
crazy, man. I am in bed.
yeah,
I'm like the complete. I am the polar opposite. I get up at like 6 and I start working on music at 8. But then again, I don't have, you know, like I don't have a day job or any of that. So I could definitely say when I did, because you know that I used to be a hairdresser back when I was a hairstylist for 18 years. And even then, though, I would get up before work and write because, like, I just have this like creative energy that kind of shoots into my head first thing. Later in the evening, I love recording at night, but like I find that at night sometimes I don't really come up with that much good stuff because I'm usually too tired and probably smoked too much weed by then where it's just like why, you know, I'm like the but so can you sing or do you where do you record? Like
so
where do you go? Do you have a studio room or
I have a cupboard.
that's what I was gonna say. I knew you
Literally, yeah,
fucking you
I sc-
sang in the cupboard.
yeah, yeah, screaming at a cupboard.
So
Uh,
so wait, so remind me, so there was something funny about Computer Warrior. Um you you recorded it on like the cheapest laptop ever or
Still have,
something. Like
yeah, like a
you
hundred.
told me you were like, dude, this thing is like ancient beast that I got for like 50 pounds.
Yeah, I'm still on Windows 7.
I don't even know what that is. So like it can't I don't you know like I don't think I haven't seen Windows since Windows 98, man. I have been a I don't even like when I see a PC, I'm just like, what is this? Because I have used Apple computers forever. I don't even know any different. Like it's
Yeah,
so crazy. So when you say Windows 7, I'm like, I don't even know what kind of like
I don't even know what to
because
compare.
Macs have always been synonymous with like media projects. They've been very seamless in things of movie production, sound production,
Mhm.
art. They've always been that's what gravitated to me to them early before they were are this, you know, the iPhone.
Yeah,
The iPhone didn't even exist yet and I was already using Apple.
yeah, yeah.
So anyway, it must be a completely different thing. I mean, like as far as what I'm used to do it on, like you don't even have like anything like I have.
No,
Yet we were able to somehow I wouldn't say we put out the best production on
no,
the planet Earth, but I will say this, it has like a certain sound to it that I liked. I was like, it sounds old school, it has
yeah,
enough, it's loud enough to be there, it's not super polished out. You know, we didn't buff it, polish it, steam clean the interior, shampoo the seats, shampoo the carpets, you know, and then you spray the antiviral spray on all the cracks, and then to make sure none of the mold comes back.
No, there's
Um,
things on that
so
upholstery.
we kind of just like we recorded parts and just like we're like here, like I tried my best to make it sound good, and of course like me being kind of a average drummer doesn't help anything. It kind of I'm limited there. But I thought it pushed me. Like I thought I like it really made me work hard at it. And like we did everything on such a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
The fact that we even did is it will be talked about 20 years from now when all the classic new wave of traditional heavy metal shit is now old and people are like digging up, because one thing I know about us humans is we love to dig up history.
Yeah.
We're history. We love history. Human beings are gravitate to history.
Especially.
Like they're uncovering ancient civilizations today. And we're, it's part of the human culture. So just as I even though I was born in 1981, I was obviously far too young to have any in-depth connection to what was happening musically at the time. Even though I would say I was a 10 steps ahead of what the average people were listening to because of skateboarding. And I had my dad and then the people around me, these musical fucking people, right? That they would feed it to you basically like here. So I mean, Metallica at 6. I mean, we're talking also in a time where fucking Tipper Gore was trying to put a parental advisory sticker on everything and make it the devil, and the PRMC and all that stuff. My mom, out of all people, after my parents split, because my dad always was like, what a ritual we used to have when I was a kid, when I have my weekend with my dad, right? Like my parents are divorced. So they split when I was 7. So most of my life, most of my young years and into my, anyway, um, on the weekends before I went home, he would take me to Tower Records, which is like a big popular record store here in the States. And I would get to pick out 2 tapes. So I was kind of spoiled, man. Honestly, like 2 tapes every weekend was pretty sweet. I love that shit. Like I did not take it for granted at all. And I really like I kind of learned how to like find stuff that I would like by looking at album covers.
Exactly. That's how we did it.
And I'd be like, I'm going to like this is gonna be sick. And man, it was such a different time and place. I was actually thinking about that with Rex today. I was like, what, how am I gonna like we have records and stuff, but the thing is like I'm always in here listening to music, and I was trying to like think, I was like, how am I gonna get him like more involved in the musical thing? And it's like the only way to do it is I'm only grabbing this because it was sitting here from earlier. I'm not doing any self promotion, but vinyl records. Vinyl records, they seem to be the best and coolest way to like when you're presenting music to somebody. Like I think there's something more prestigious about it than going, hey, check out this band, and then click, 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 and you're there. Because like you get to see this big old piece of artwork, and then you have to have this dedicated sound system in your living room to play it on. And and then you have to physically go there and do it.
Yeah, and flip it over and lift the needle.
So there's a lot of personal
it's the ritualistic thing, I think. It's like a ritual.
What so what do you do to like, how do you show your kids music?
Well, a lot of it's in the.
Are they not there? Are they not there?
Well, when the older 2 were younger, it would be a lot of because their mum and me were divorced when they were kind of 4 and 2. So I would be kind of a lot of driving to their, like doing a school run to where they were. It's about half an hour away from where I am. and back. So doing school trips would be a lot of listening to music in the car. So they'd be listening to what I was listening to. So it was
Hell yeah.
a Kiss phase briefly, and I'm not really a Kiss fan, so I was like, oh, you know what? It's kind of it's better than what you could be listening to, so we'll have Kiss. And then I think it
Oh,
just
dude, we just got over the Kiss phase. Oh,
yeah, I know.
God. Anyway, go on.
But I think it just as they got older and made their own friends and stuff, the music thing kind of it's like what we saying, it's not as important to them as it was to me. Um, and a lot of it's kind of like it's mostly rap stuff that they're into, or like there's this awful music in the UK called drill. I don't know if you guys have it in the States, but it's
I don't like anything new, man.
you would hate it. But it's like,
I like if it ain't guitar anymore, I'm like, I don't want to even
no, it's
listen to music without a guitar.
so bad, so bad. UK drill is the worst. But they kind of like that kind of stuff. So I've kind of I've lost with them. And then with Zach, it was vinyl records. You're right. Putting like Iron Maiden vinyls on and stuff, and he would be shaking his little butt to it and stuff. But he's been hijacked a little bit by the missus. She's a big pop punk fan, so he's kind of it's got to be Blink
That's
One Eight
all
Two.
right.
Got to be
I
Blink.
love me some pop punk. Like I said, guitar music, I'll at
There's
least give
guitars,
it a shot.
yeah. So
But I mean, we have so on my end, on my dad end of the spectrum, one thing that I find really fascinating about being a dad on my like where I'm taking Rex, because like I take it as my personal responsibility to at least show him the rad shit that's cool.
yeah,
Like, hey, check it out, dude. You're old man. You don't got you don't have a normal old man.
yeah,
You got rocker dad, dude. For like, I am heavy metal for life, man. I am musician till the day I die. I love toys, man. So like, one thing that really I love about this era is the fucking toys that can connect to the music.
yeah.
Like Iron Maiden. So NECA is this like toy company, NECA. Most toy nerds here will know what I'm talking about. They've been doing some Iron Maiden shit, and
Oh,
it's like it's real good. I buy it. I mean, I'm obsessed. Like, but like um they're 8-inch figures. They're fully articulated. They have clothes and all this shit.
cool.
So I mean, it's kind of crazy. So like, we do spend a lot of money on toys here, but I also feel like the toy and music culture and all that stuff, I just want Rex just to like know where he comes from, man. Like, this is what shit's all about, dude. Like, music is so cool. It can go from you wrote a song to where there's a toy. Like,
Yeah,
there's
that's
just
taken down
it
big.
is a big, huge, powerful statement. I don't know if he'll be into, but the apple didn't fall too far from the tree with me, my friend.
Yeah, well, you got your dad and you, and then Rex is just gonna be
Other people of my family, I have my uncle Paul and EMI, and
really.
got kind of popular in Japan for a little bit.
Oh,
And
nice.
then my mom's cousin is Denny Carmassi, who played with my dad, Sammy Hagar, and Heart. And
Oh,
then and then I have my uncle Bob, who somewhere on here. Where's that 50Y tattoo? People always ask me about my 50Y tattoo right here,
mhm.
and that was my uncle Bob. Is my dad's brother. That was his racing number. He raced motorcycles. He's a
Oh,
cool motherfucker, and he's a drummer. And I played in a band with him for a while, so like we're real tight. So like I just always had like music around me. So it's interesting to hear where your kids have gone, knowing how passionate and deeply you feel about music. Like, it's so hard to even keep people in touch.
yeah. I think with kids as well, when they get older, you lose that kind of that not control, but that influence that you have over them when they're kind of like 4 or 5, and there's
Yeah.
so many other influences hitting them. It's hard to keep tabs on that. I think it'll probably be easier with obviously with Zach. He's here all the time, The old
Yeah.
aren't in this house all the time, so that it might be like he gets more
Yeah,
into
he's got that's what's fucked all that up, to be
yeah
real. Like, you're not there every day,
yeah
because like, honestly, I feel like it's interesting, like, as a male, like, you do need like you kind of need your dad more than your mom when you're a teenager, honestly. In my life, I felt like I couldn't really. I love my mom, and if she's watching this, don't be mad at me.
yeah
I'm only speaking the truth, and you're my mom, and I love you so much. But and this is the truth. She could not. We were just not on the same plane of existence with
Mhm.
things, and I needed. There's just things that she couldn't do that, like, so one thing when I was really younger, I got really into playing baseball. And then, like, and me and my dad, I mean, dude, he would, like, he made me go up under those fly balls, and you know what I mean. Like, that's the kind of shit where he's like, he got me to overcome my fears. There's so many things that I look to him, because he's like, get under that ball, hey,
Yeah,
like, whatever. He's like, stand in front of it, and nothing's gonna, you're gonna get it. And it all clicked for me. But my mom, so like, she also moved us away too. So like, we moved, there was this separation where we were all together, even divorced, but then it grew. And then so I started to see my dad less, which
yeah,
was the worst thing ever for me, to be honest. I remember my mom was like, well, I'll play catch with you. And my dad had made me very seasoned player. We played all the time. He was such a badass dad, because his weekend would be fucking dedicated to just whatever I wanted to do.
yeah. That's cool.
And luckily for, he loves sports a lot. My dad is a sports fanatic. But anyway, like, I remember my mom was like, I'll be the catcher, I'll catch. And I was like throwing it at her. And my mom, she's ballsy. I mean, she was trying. So I have to give her a lot of credit for trying to, get into a male role.
Yeah,
But like, dude, like, I could not throw the ball at my mom like I did my dad.
yeah.
I just couldn't do it.
You
And
don't
I
have
just like, I was it, like, so it was very. So I'm only using that as something, because I'm saying is like, your your baby mama, she's like in a whole different world than you. So when they're there, they ain't in dad's world.
yeah,
I guarantee you, because you're a cool motherfucker, and there's no way that if they weren't there all the time, you wouldn't be their fucking hero. Because every young man, their dad is. I mean, did you have a good relationship with your dad, or am
oh
I,
yeah,
or
yeah. Like very very old school kind of sort of Scottish father son relationship. In Scotland we don't do physical showing of emotion particularly well. So like you could walk past your dad in Scotland and do that. That means love you, dad. You never say it.
yeah.
It's just a weird cultural thing. Anyone from UK,
But you guys were tight though, and he showed you the way.
yeah, very much. My
He
dad's
probably showed you. Your mom shows you one side, and your dad shows you the other
yeah,
things that. But I'm like I feel like you need both. But I'm just saying, it's like, when you come from like, I think about how much more progressed I could have been had my parents figured their shit out, and my dad was around a lot more, that I would be phenomenally better musically.
but
Because I
no,
didn't.
no,
I just.
maybe that was the
I
reason you.
would have been. He helped inspire the musical passion. I didn't understand it as a kid, because I saw him doing it. Like, I would go to band practices, and I thought my dad was being hilarious, because he's just sitting there jamming, right? Like, just, I was like, what's going on right now? Like, what is this? It was weird, but in the end, like I got it. You know what I mean? Like everything that he was throwing at me, I was absorbing it. So imagine hadn't we spent more time, how much
Yeah.
more that I would absorb. Not saying that I didn't want to spend time with my mom. Then I did get to live with my dad in the end. So, you know, obviously I live in Fresno. I chose Fresno where my dad lives
Mm.
versus where my mom lives. And not just because, you know, I just really need my dad around. Like I like being this close where we just connect.
Yeah.
You know, like it's hard. You know, he just had some serious shit go down. Like we just spent the last like 3 weeks doing hospital shit. My dad had to have surgery.
Oh.
It was fucking insane. And it's like we almost lost him.
Oh
So
shit.
we almost lost the electric church. He had to have some
Right.
serious
Yeah.
surgery, and he's back doing well, but like again, it's just like, you know, I just still look at, when I look at him, I still am like, man, dude, you were the dude back in the day. You showed me what was up, you know, like fucking thank you, because like it gave me, you know, a great example. I just look at what my dad, you know, how the passion of music played for my dad. So let's skip forward on that. I don't know where we just went there. We got all deep
We did.
and uh or I did,
Well,
but I did ask you about your dad, and I highly doubt anybody in the new wave of traditional heavy metal world is like, hey, what kind of dad did you have, man? In an interview question. You know, that's where I wanted to make this a lot different, is where we could like, because like I'm willing to open up about whatever, you know, whatever it is that I had, you know, the way that I mean, because I did not have a perfect upbringing. Like I said, my parents are divorced, and anybody that comes, you know, you've actually gone through a divorce or
mm,
something. It sounds
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that must have been horrifying.
Yeah, it's hard, man. The good thing is that me and the boy's mum are on sort of. I've always maintained being on like friendly terms. The thing for me was always when it happened was make sure that you love your kids more than you hate your ex. You know,
Yeah,
the kind of key, and whatever you're feeling at the time, like bury it because your kids are number one, and they need to be okay with everything that's going on. So, yeah, well, it was very hard, like explaining to them. I think they were probably young enough that they didn't really understand. So when it happened was probably beneficial. When you're a bit older, you can know what's going on and you understand really
yeah,
better, and it maybe hurts a bit more. But I'm sure it's affected them in some way. But like I say, they were young enough to know. I think young enough not to know kind of what was really happening. So we kept friendly relationship still to this day. So there's never been any issues on that. In terms of some divorces, which I can imagine are
yeah.
horrific, ours really wasn't, and just it was just a case of putting the kids.
Oh, dude, my parents' separation was horrific. Horrific. It was not good. So you're lucky on that light. Like,
Mm,
I mean, it's very. You know, I know a few other people that are like that, that have that spirit. You know, they have that tight. Like even my drummer of my band, him and his baby mama, they're
yeah,
separated, but they get along quite well. They've done the co-parenting thing, and they've raised a couple good kids. So you there, you know, with the right love and the right guidance, it still works. But I wanted to ask you some other stuff before, instead of all
yeah,
this home life shit. That's It's good to
yeah,
get the home life stuff in there, because it does affect how your music plays or whatever your thing. But so you have a live band now.
yes. Finally, we do. You were always telling me to go and do it, and I was a bit kind of reluctant to do it. But I think this year I sort of decided that I was gonna. There was a few things I wanted to do, like kind of life goals, I guess you would call them. And that was one of them. So I just really wanted to just bite the bullet and just go out there and do it. It was always tricky finding people, but Richie, who was a bass player in my old band Tantrum, he left Tantrum, so he was at a loose end, and we were kind of talking like, should we maybe do something? And then he found the drummer, and our drummer James he's like a killer drummer, like so good. Like he plays in a death metal band, so he has that kind of death metal, those kind of chops, the double bass chops, and but some of the shit he does, I'm just like, in awe of what it can do. So we
And
found
he has to play my shitty drum beats. He's probably like, this guy sucked.
it does them proud. And then we've got Ryan on guitar as well. He's kind of like a sort of shreddy kind of guy. So it came together really quick actually. And then I gave them, I came up with a set list, gave it to them, and they learned it really quick. Really, before we got in, before we did the gigs with Tail Gunner, we had only done I think 7 rehearsals, so we weren't like deep into. We weren't really that well drilled. We were kind of probably a bit sloppy, but enough.
But you had the material written,
Yeah,
so
that
there's homework. You could do homework at that point, so it's not like 7 is pretty green, you know,
yeah
but that's still very green. But you have to get your feet wet. So, um, for those that don't know, up until just recently, Steven was just recording albums in his cupboard at his house or flat or whatever they have in fucking Scotland.
a house, yeah,
And
a homestead.
and just recently he has put together a live band to be doing Oath. And that just happened. And you've only played, so you played a couple good shows with Tail Gunner, and aren't you playing with Tanith or
We did.
something?
We played with Tanith. Yeah, we did. So we did 3 with Tail Gunner, and then 1 with Tanith a little bit later, which was we broke the PA on that one, so it kind of got ended a little bit short, which was fun. Nice little story to tell. But yeah, that was a really good gig too. So I'm
So
well. So it
what's
was
next? What's next for Oath, man? Like, what are you guys gonna? Are you doing a new record? Because I know you released one not too long ago. Maybe it was a year ago, but
I think it was yeah. I think this year what I'm going to try and do is re-record Legacy. That's like my
okay.
plan this year. And I don't
Which
know.
I told you to do a long
Yeah,
time
you
ago.
did.
Did I not
You did.
spark that? I
I'm
said you
listening.
should go back because I went and listened to it and I was like, these are really good songs, but
Yeah.
your demos were just so those were your infancy demos,
Yeah, it was hard to listen to now. So I think that's the
but
plan.
they're catchy.
I know they are good songs as well. That's what, like, every time I listen to it, it's the same. I'm like, oh, these are good songs, but I very rarely listen to it because of how bad it's recorded. So um, I think that's the plan this year, to go and re-record that either by myself now that I have a lot more knowledge, or finances depending, do it with at least a real drummer.
Yeah.
And we'll see how we go with that. So that's the
I
plan.
mean, I would if I wasn't as busy as I am, I would have loved to drum more on your records. But I was just like, in my back of my mind, one of the reasons I did not is because I was like hoping you would start a live band,
Yeah.
and kind of like what happened with Saber, you know, like
Hmm.
they never had a drummer
Yeah.
really, and so I was put myself in that position, and but I was always like, you know, like they wanted me to play live for them at one of their shows that we were playing with them, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, I'm not fucking playing a set on drums and then coming out and doing guitar and singing on tour. I'm like, you're out
No.
of your fucking mind. So a few times I had to put them into the the hot seat of like, you do need a fucking drummer. Like that's an important part of the band. You guys need to, but they ended up using somebody they already had and then finding a replacement for that, which was easier.
Right.
Their guitar player went to drums, and they found a guitar player, which,
Right.
as you probably know, is way. If there's
Yeah.
a drummer, you probably have to utilize it even if they aren't the best,
Yes. Yes.
because at least they're there. If they're there and they're gonna practice,
They're your drummer.
they have the potential. The potential is there to improve.
Definitely.
You know, whereas a guitar player, you're gonna find them
Yeah, they're everywhere.
way easier. So they found one, and I was like waiting. I was like, man. And when I saw that you're doing that, I was like, fuck yeah, dude! Computer Warrior is live now.
Yeah.
How
Well,
did it feel being on stage for the first time playing your songs?
before going
Were
on
you
with,
nervous, fuck, or what?
oh, I was that close to not doing it.
Jesus.
Just honestly, like just sitting, waiting to go on, just on the floor like this, like, oh fuck, shaking. And you get that cold, sweaty kind of thing in your hand, and you can't play guitar. I had that.
Yeah.
And as soon as we started the first song, I was fine. It was great, but yeah, it was because the first gig we did, it wasn't that busy, and that's always worse because you can see everyone, you can see all the gaps when there's a crowd. Like the two gigs after that were really busy, so it was easier then. But when there's less of a crowd, it's harder.
Yeah.
So getting over that little hurdle was tricky. But yeah,
It's a real motherfucker. I remember, dude. I mean, I had just come off of two big ass tours for me with Beastmaker. I was out with Zach Wild's Zach Sabbath project
mhm.
for a month. And then I'm out with the Ukraine, this huge band in Europe called Stone Jesus. They have a huge following.
Okay.
And we did an entire month in Europe with them. And we played for fucking huge crowds every night. And then, I get home, and even though, so one of the things I did, because I didn't even have a band. I had already wrote some stuff, and we had to go play Hell's Heroes 1.
Yeah.
And I put together this band. We practiced together one time, and I was like, we have to go play a show.
Oh shit.
Like, we got this tour coming out to there, yada yada yada. And I barely had put a band together. Like, barely. Like, it was like at the 1 week before tour, I finally had a band. You know what I mean? That kind of shit. Like, it was fucking terrifying. But I had a guitar player. I had John,
Yeah.
from Beastmaker. So that I knew somebody was gonna be able to do all the guitar shit. And then my drummer Wolfie at the time, he wasn't originally gonna be able to do it. He was really sick. He was in the hospital, and somehow he had a fucking like a miracle recovery, and he was able to like do this tour. But he was like on all kinds of medication when we were there. It was like he did not look well, but he was like he got through it. But man, we played at the local record store for our first show, and I was just like, I didn't even know how we were gonna do it, man. But it is so it is so stressful. You sweat so much more. You're so much more nervous, and I could feel I could see it, um like in some of the pictures where it's just like, oh man, he's going for it right now. He's feeling the like everybody's hearing your shit. You're singing for the first time
Yeah. First time ever.
that way through a microphone
Yeah.
and playing guitar and having do you do all the leads still, or
So
is Ryan doing them?
the plan was that it would be I would do like a 50-50 kind of Thin Lizzy Iron Maiden thing. But just because of the time we had, I think Ryan did maybe 2 or 3 solos, and then we just said, you know what, uh, I'll do solos just because it'll get us through the rehearsals quicker. So yeah, 90% of the solos I'm doing, which is a lot. So you were talking about with Jake on the on the last
Yeah.
about being a guitar player and a singer at the same time. I mean, a lead guitar player and singer at the same time, and it's you're doing everything all at once. You don't get a break. You're the guitar player. You've
Yeah.
got a solo, and that's your thing. That once you've done that, you can step
It's
back a little.
it is the hardest thing
Yeah,
on
there's
the
no.
planet Earth. And that's another thing that I knew looking and knowing. I'm like, whoo, his first show. And then to see that you had, Tail Gunner, who seems to be very popular right now and
Oh,
very like young, energetic
very.
band with anthemic songs and all that stuff. Like, you have to kind of go out there with underneath that and watch what they do, and analyze yourself to those kind of things.
Yeah,
That's crazy. I remember that like I've always been intimidated by other musicians a lot. Like, it's just like it's just such an easy world to feel intimidation, because there's a lot of good musicians out there that when I see them, I'm just like, fuck, man, I can't even like can't touch that. But there's over like when I went on tour with Zach, I feel like I had went to college
yeah.
when I
You're
got done on that tour. because I mean, I was just watching him every night and watching those dudes. And I mean, the bass player was in so many bands. He played in Danzig. So I mean, like
Oh,
yeah, Blasco. He actually got us on the tour. So big shout out to
yeah,
Blasco. Love you, dog. He's my homie. Um, anyway, watching those dudes, and I mean, like every night, even though it's Black Sabbath cover songs, it's like I love that shit. So it was fine for me. I mean, I was like,
I listen
listen to Black Sabbath every day of my life. So watching him do his thing, I realized quite a few things on that tour where it's just like you just have to go up there and kind of like own it on your own. Like
Yes.
what you do, whatever it is that you're doing it the best that you're doing it. You're giving 100% just attitude, and you have to, every note has to be played with emotion.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't have
And I feel like that's where that's when bands really shine, when there's an emotional thing to it. And Zach has that like all day. His love for guitar and just music, he's a phenomenal player, as all of us know. He is a shred fucking wizard. He's great. Maybe I've never really been into his Black Label Society stuff. Like it's not for me, but I love some of the stuff he did with Ozzy. Skies on Fire, I think, was a good one he did. Anyway, everybody knows him from like the No More Tears stuff, but
yeah.
I learned that when you go out there, you're confident and you just do what you have to do to give it I mean, he'd come off stage dripping.
Yeah.
Dripping sweat. Like he made me look bad. I was like, this motherfucker is a torrential down. He has plastic over his pedal board.
Oh, just for the sweat.
Just from the sweat. I mean, you could just see it. I guess he'd put his arm up and I'd be in the back and I could just see sweat just pouring out of his leather. And like I was just really impressed. And Joey Castillo on drums. It was a powerhouse show. I learned how to be a rock star on that tour, where when I went out and played with other people now, like I felt like I was like, I just watched this dude, studied him, talked to them, and it was just like that took everything. And even my drummer Andy could tell you the same thing. We talk about it still. Like that was we never been on anything like that. Like we had to be up there on time. Dude, our shit was like, you know what I mean? We had to be professional.
Big boy stuff.
And we had no fucking clue what we were doing. and they kind of took us under their wing and showed us like what was up. And I owe a lot to those guys for that. But I could only imagine, I just go back and thinking about that guy that, like I had done that. Like I had done that tour, and then all of a sudden I'm in a record shop playing and I'm nervous. I'm right back at square one.
Yeah.
Like that quickly, just by playing a different music and a different thing like you've never done before. It doesn't matter how fucking good you are. There's going to be, your nerves are going to be on fire because you've never done it. You don't know, like you have to almost learn to live in this world where like there is no crowd. You're playing for you. You know what I mean? Like you're playing for you on how like, what you would do. Like I almost look at a show as like band practice for me. Essentially, it's just like I'm just practicing what I'm doing in front of people.
Yeah, that's a good way.
That's it. But we just started getting into some production things. Like I built these ego risers with lights and fog in them and shit. But it's interesting to see how Tail Gunner does it. They're doing a really good job. You're wearing a Tail Gunner shirt, so I just want to give Thomas a little bit of shout out, because I did talk to him one time and I told him, I said, you did really good, man. Like the whole way that you promoted your band, because they didn't do really any shows till after they had an album out. They weren't even really, I mean, like they all lived separate places, have to come together. It's like it's a whole production, man. So
They're amazing.
It must have been interesting. It would be really cool for me. It's awesome to see you emerge and them. Like, there's like a thing happening in the UK now. Obviously, there's Tail Gunner,
Seven Sisters.
and then you have the most, and it's weird because they're an old band, but they're putting out their best work as Satan, who is just, and they're they're Newcastle area guys.
Yeah. That was always a big in Wobham as well. There was always lots of.
I think they're like if anybody asks me right now what I'm listening to, Satan. That's what I listen to. Like Brian Ross and Russ. First off, not only are they like really good friends of mine, and I will probably have both of them on here at some point. So because those dudes are those are my guys, man. Like, I love them, but they are putting out some of the best heavy metal music I have heard in the last ever. They're better now. It's better than Court and the Act. It's better than Court and the Act. Their new record. So it's crazy how they've been able to. They just crossed the time threshold. They went landed in 2024 and are killer. Like, and then so you got Oath, and I know there's Witch Hazel.
Yes. You got or Hellripper, kind of a thrashy band, but there's Hellripper. There's a few kind of bubbling up now.
There seems to be a little. There's another band. I can't think of their name. Hold on. Fuck. Hold on. I'm gonna skip through this real quick. Hold on. I didn't have to. It came to me. Amulet. Do they still play?
I don't think so, really. No, I've not heard of them for a long time.
That's too bad. They had they had a couple early on things that were very like doomy, new wave of British heavy metal kind of Witchfinder General thing going on in their early records. That was really good. And then of course we can't forget Seven Sisters, who are fucking phenomenal.
Yes.
Like Kyle is a musical genius.
2 bands.
But he moved. He's Spanish now. He's not British anymore.
But that works for him with the whole Brexit thing. He's now in Europe, so he doesn't have to deal with all the visa shit. The rest of us.
I don't know anything about that. I'm just a guy from California. But anyway, so let's. I got to get going pretty soon, but let's talk about. So let's just what do we have to look forward to in 2024 as far as Stephen Waddell? Like, what's going down?
So re-recording Legacy, definitely. That's going to be the main thing. I think I need to get that done, and then I think just gigs wise, just probably try and do some festivals. I think I want to do that. But probably just in the UK, just trying to build that up a little bit. I'm not going to be going time. I don't have the time to do it, but just here and there, little runs here and there, and just sort of slowly building it up this year. That's the plan.
Yeah, I mean that's a good idea. I would definitely say as somebody, if I was going to give you any advice on what the next step would be in the live thing, and it would be to try to build up around where you are, but also you need to be able to one thing you need to do is travel at least 3 hours out of town every once in a while and go on a little trek to a different town, stay the night, so you could kind of get your beak wet with some of that, because I think there's going to be a turning point, man, on music. I think music is going to have its time to come back into a real relevant status as far as financial stability as a musician. I know people say it's really bad right now. It's only bad right now because it's gotten to the point where, sometimes things have to get really bad before they get better.
That's true.
In history and throughout. So we are seeing literally we are at the bottom of the fucking barrel. And the popular, I think, just 2 days ago, Dee Snider was like, Spotify is ruining music for everybody. And when he said that, I was just like, why doesn't every fucking we can't depend on Lars Ulrich to do it because he already did it.
20 years ago, yeah. Nobody
And,
listened.
and I mean, they took so much heat from that, man. Like, it was people burning their CDs or smashing them,
Yeah.
and like, fuck you. And it's only now that people are starting to realize that we have not been getting paid, and in CEOs like Daniel Ek is making a $2 billion paycheck a year.
Yeah.
And there's just something wrong with that. And if people don't understand it, or they think that we're being lame or whatever, it's not that we don't like streaming. It's like, if that's going to be the case, then like, what kind of money are they really making? And then they need to break it down to where it's like, okay, well, out of, you should be at least getting a percent.
You should get something.
We don't even get a percent. We don't even get a percent.
No.
You know what I mean? That's when it really starts to, you go, man, we are getting this. Who signed this deal? Yeah. And then you realize that nobody did, because it's just how it is, because there's nobody looking, there's no laws set in place to where we could audit their books. Because I mean, how interesting would it be to audit Spotify to see, to look in?
Documentary waiting to happen, surely.
I mean, it has to be something, because we all know how they reported a loss, but all corporations reported a loss because they don't want to give the government any money.
Of course.
So they go, oh, well, we didn't report any profit. Well, you paid your CEO? We all know it was in like 2020 or something, or 2021. He got $2 billion. It was in a Wire magazine. It was like big, because he's a big tech guy. So he's this fucking billionaire guy. And you're like, dude, but now, they do like podcasts and stuff and certain things that I know it's not just music now, but it's not just them. It's just the whole concept. It's like, so what I'm doing, I think I told you earlier at some point that I'm lowering all of my digital album prices significantly. So what that reflects is like, okay, well, they are right. Why pay for something that you can't really touch? But it's like, well, when you're paying $5 for it, ain't nothing.
Yeah.
You didn't spend 20 on it. Like, it's not the same as the physical. So it's like, I just had to think about the industry standard a dollar record royalty rate, maybe $1.20. That's what the industry standard royalty rate is. If it's a digital album or streamed or whatever, it costs you nothing to put out there. There's no labor cost, essentially. So what makes sense? If you make $1.20 off of it, good. Like, that's what the royalty the record label is going to give you. So if your album was once 10 on, that's the way I'm trying to perceive things, in thinking forward on how do we get people more motivated to spend money on the artist itself, because we all know it goes directly into the pockets of the people in charge of the band. It's not going all over the place anymore. You know what I mean? So it's like, so for $5 you could have supported this dude. That's all they wanted. $5.
Nothing.
And in your streaming service, you can't take that where the internet is not.
Yeah.
On an airplane.
Yeah.
What do you do on an airplane? Like, you have to have internet to listen to music. I was at my drummer's the other day, and he was like trying to show me something, and he don't have no fucking records or anything. He doesn't collect for anything. I don't even know if he listens to stuff. Like, he only listens to Pantera, as far as I know. But anyway, he was wanting to show me something, and the internet in his studio was down, and he couldn't show me it.
Oh yeah, that's it.
I thought it was hilarious. He's like, dude, I got to show you this. And then it was like, I'm like waiting for the fucking grand finale, and he's like, oh, the internet's not working. And you're just like, what? So anyway, I know that you just recently take everything off Spotify?
Yeah, I took the huff and just fucking, I'm going to put stuff back up, but I'm going to just do like singles. So,
Yeah.
or maybe not,
Yeah.
like maybe 2 or 3 songs from each album, just so that it can get on a playlists and stuff like that. But I don't want to put full albums up on there. I think, like you
Yeah.
said, no
So
albums on
what
Spotify.
we're going to be doing with Spotify is we're going to look at things just a tiny bit differently. Put your singles up when the record comes out, right? The songs that you're promoting that might be playlisted or whatever. And since they don't really pay anything, like I do not care if you look at what Spotify paid, you would have to listen to the song a lot to even make it even an album. It was something ungodly, like 3,000 times you'd have to listen to that song. I'm a musician. I live in a world submerged in music. Listening to a song 3,000 times is a lifetime. That has to be your favorite song ever on the fucking planet.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they think that, like, oh, it equates. No, it does not. It does not. You know, like, you don't make more money because you keep playing it. It's like it never made enough money to even be a legitimate album sale.
Yeah.
So with that kind of mind, and I'm just saying it's not the consumer, it's the product. Spotify. They do not pay fairly for what they do. We aren't even a percentage to them. Yet their whole platform is dealt off of entertainment personalities. So what we do is if you want new shit, you could buy it for $5 anywhere. But you're not going to hear this album for like I did this with Flashback. I didn't put it up there for a year.
Yeah, remember, yeah. That was a good idea.
So I'm just going back to that blueprint because I've experimented. I've done a lot of research on what I need to do as an independent artist. And I felt like I got a lot more support with Flashback on through digital album downloads,
right,
than I did on anything that came before it.
It makes sense.
You know, and I was like, that's what's up. Like if you put that, if that's the way you make it, they go. You know what I mean? You get and and I think it should be even more relevant now because of the lower pricing too.
Definitely.
They're gonna be like, oh, well, I just go here. Let's just hope Bandcamp doesn't fuck everything up like a bunch of fucking morons that corporations generally tend to be.
Yeah, hopefully that stays. It's all been kind of okay so far, so hopefully, fingers crossed.
So the last thing I want to talk to you about real quick is we're hitting the skies here. What do you think about Bandcamp, man? To maybe some bands that are upcoming, do you think it's like important and relevant to what you do?
Yeah, I'm not sure how I would do it without Bandcamp. I mean, I guess you'd need a website, and then you'd have to for like having the domain name and everything. So there'd be a financial upkeep to doing that. And I don't know if that would be. Obviously, Bandcamp takes a fee, so maybe it evens out. I don't know, but for me, it's for ease of use. Like it's so easy. It keeps track of everything for me. I don't really have to think too much about it. So I would, I if Bandcamp doesn't exist, I would hope something similar or the same took its place.
There's already something on the works that I keep getting emails from people about this thing called Ampwall.
Ampwall.
So yeah, so this is what's going to be interesting in the coming years. Of that is that Bandcamp they charge a premium 10% per sale. What's going to happen is like I remember this happening with eBay and Reverb.com. All the dudes back in the day, we were selling our gear off on eBay. Yeah. I mean, I've owned a lot of gear in my life, and I've sold the majority of it on eBay or Reverb. eBay takes 12% on musical instruments, plus the PayPal fee. So what Reverb did to become relevant is they have like, we are 3% and we do direct deposit to your bank.
Okay.
So they're 9% cheaper
Yeah.
than eBay. Now I don't know where you do most of your guitar buying these days, but I have found that reverb.com, and I'm not affiliated with reverb.com by any way, mind you, that reverb.com is an amazing place to score gear.
Right.
In comparison. So I've sold a ton of shit on there. Now, what's going to happen is like a company like Ampwall, or there's going to be 10 more of those in the future. Probably it just depends which one's going to make the ground shake.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a point where it's going to be much cheaper somewhere else, and possibly better, you know, because like we can't. One thing is their whole player on the phone, like it just sucks because it doesn't really work out. Like I don't mind it. I think the only thing that I think would be a great thing is if they were somehow able to integrate it into your like iTunes or something, like,
yeah, that'd be cool.
You know what I mean? I don't know, because that's how I mainly listen to music, is my iTunes. So like, it'd be sick if my Bandcamp purchases just like automatically were downloaded onto my phone, and they're just boom, there they are on iTunes. Oh,
yeah. If they could sync,
so I don't need a separate app. But I don't think Apple would ever gladly do anything like that. They have their nose in the music business.
Yeah, that would be probably a conflict of interest.
So it always has to be. It's gonna always have to be a separate, like a player of some sort. But who knows? I mean, like the sky's the limit. But anyway, man, I want to thank you. I know you it's late as fuck over there, and I'm almost done with my second joint, so I'm basically worthless for the rest of the day now. But I have to go to a family event later. But I just want to thank you for your time, and everybody. Where can we listen to Oath at? That for those that get this deep.
Everywhere except Spotify. Everywhere
except Spotify.
Pretty much.
Dude, best of luck to you. Happy holidays, man. It's really good to talk to you. I feel like I could go on another 40 minutes, but I you know, be well. We'll talk again soon. It's been a long time, so it's good to catch up with you. It seems like you look really well, so I'm just gonna assume things are okay.
All good, man. Yep, all good here.
All right. Everybody check out Oath and Steve. Love you, brother. Be well.
Too,
happy holidays. Thank you for those that are watching. Subscribe to the channel. Support your local heavy metal bands. Later.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.